Hello everyone and welcome. So I was really asked to talk a little bit about the St Vincent's perspective around a collaborative approach to dealing with aggression prevention and management. I think I'd like to sort of link a little bit with a comment that Janelle and Patrice made, and that is that we've already mentioned a little bit about collaboration, and I think particularly over the last few years there certainly has been an increase of collaboration, not just within our own organisation, but certainly with external health services and other services. So I'm just going to explore a little bit about how we've gone about doing that. And I think it's also worth mentioning that particularly over the last 3 or 4 years, the discussion really has moved away from ED and mental health and looked at a whole of hospital approach. And that's something we've really strived to do at St Vincent's, that we have aggression and violence everywhere, and it doesn't just happen in the areas that we think it happens. It happens to our reception staff, it happens to our community or lone workers, it happens to people who are non-clinical as well as clinical staff. So I think it is really important that the shift and the focus has moved to a whole of hospital. So just to give you a little bit of background about some of the statistics that we've got at St Vincent's, we see or have around about 3,600 code greys a year. Broken down, the vast majority, or about 1,600 of those, happen in ED, about 800 happen in mental health, and then we certainly have about 1,000 codes that happen in the main area of the hospital. So again, that just kind of proves that it's a whole of hospital problem. We had about 40 code blacks last year, and we have actually seen an increase in our code blacks this year. And there's a number of reasons for that, which we're currently drilling into. Part of it is that we're having issues around discharge of people, particularly people who are homeless. And we're also seeing incidences of aggression around grief and bereavement, and families really struggling to contain their anger around grief and bereavement. Last year we had reported 239 physical assaults on staff. Now, a vast majority of those are actually quite mild. They might be hair pulling or a wrist being pulled, particularly with ADLs around patient care. But there are a number of those incidences that actually are quite serious too. And we only had 118 reported incidences of verbal assaults. So that, I think, is one of the biggest issues we face around reporting. So I can tell you what, there was more than 118 incidences of verbal assault. I most probably saw about 50 to me. So, you know, we don't report enough. So just having a little look around what we do internally in regards to collaboration. We're a big team. It's not just one person who works on occupational violence. And just to show a little bit of what we do, we have a culture at St Vincent's where, from an OH&S point of view, safety is my responsibility. What that means is that we're all part of this team together, and that we all actually have to have some awareness and some understanding, be involved in the training, know what the policies and procedures are around aggression. So it's really important that from an OH&S point of view we make sure staff are aware of what their responsibilities are as well. Security is absolutely vital to maintaining a safe workplace, and we have an in-house security team at St Vincent's led by a manager who's been there for a long period of time, and the security team are absolutely essential to the workings of a co-grey team, but also in maintaining a safe working environment in regards to looking at environmental upgrades, being involved in discussions and meetings around where we may need duress or CCTV coverage. They're approachable, they're reliable, and they're certainly seen as integral to the workings at St Vincent's. The other thing is that our security are notified on a daily basis about people of concerns who are coming into our facility. So we have an alert system that notifies our security of people that we've currently got maybe some issues around their safety. And they also get notification of where our prisoners are. So St Vincent's has a correctional health facility within it, and they pose quite a different risk to our staff. So we make sure security have some understanding about the prisoners that are coming in. In regards to mental health, recently what we've been working with mental health is reviewing our mental health ADAPT training, but also post some incidences that we had a number of years ago. There was a task force developed that's since been disbanded after it did followed up some recommendations from investigations. So what that was, though, was it was a great way of showing particularly staff what happens after a serious incident and the investigation that happened. We've had Code Grey at St Vincent's for 27 years. We're pretty well embedded in this process. We have a 6-person team. It involves a medical clinician, because a lot of the aggression you see in a hospital is clinical aggression, and it absolutely needs to be addressed by someone who is clinical, and that includes medical and nursing. We also make sure that everyone who works in the organisation has some understanding around Code Grey. So again, they were talking earlier, Department, around that tiered response. So we even make sure our volunteers and our angels get aggression training. It's fairly minimal, but they have an understanding of what are the resources available to them. We have a great relationship with our executive. We speak to our executive at the Executive Safety Councils, and we provide briefings to them around what's going on in the OV space. We do a lot of work with our clinical staff, and we do tailor aggression training to their needs. So recently we've been rolling out a campaign or a training program around methamphetamines, just to increase their awareness about methamphetamines and what that might look like if you're dealing with a patient. We work with our clinical liaison to make sure that if we've got a patient under the Mental Health Act on the ward, that we're meeting requirements, and also utilising Code Grey with a sense of a trauma-informed approach. And I just also want to mention our STAR program, which is integral when we're looking at how we collaborate. Part of the work I do is I coordinate a peer-to-peer support program at St Vincent's. It's actually one of the case studies that the department has put out, so you'll be able to read up about it. But what that does is provide 24-hour support to staff post any clinical or critical incident. And we find that staff utilise the program quite readily. It's now in its 20th year. And so if there is an incident of OV, there are people who are available straight away to provide psychological first aid. So that's a really great program that I think staff have really responded well to. We also, going around our circle, you know, we work really closely with our emergency department and our emergency coordinators, who basically attend Code Greys and any code during the 9 till 5 period. And as an after hours coordinator, I'm responsible as well as being part of the Code Grey team after hours of the hospital, and they are highly skilled clinicians with quite significant amounts of years of nursing behind us. So they have an authoritative position of the hospital and are able to really deal well with clinical aggression, particularly when we're dealing with difficult families. And my job as the aggression coordinator started out of the Building Better Partnerships program quite a number of years ago. I've been in the role now for about 8 years, and it's been great to see a lot of other health services really pick up on my role, which is really a bit of an oversee role of the aggression prevention framework at St Vincent's. I am, along with a colleague of mine, Barb Stevens, a bit of a go-to person to sort of talk to staff when they're dealing with aggression and prevention measures, and also a great resource to have someone to sort of bounce off what is going on outside of the field as well, and to update people. So I think it's been great to see St Vincent's take on this role, and now other health services have seen how beneficial it is to have Moving on to an external. So what do we do externally? A number of years ago, we joined with the Victorian Police and made a video about how to bring a patient with an acute behavioural disturbance to our facility, and how to do that in a really safe way, both for the police, for our staff, but also for the patient. And so they use that in their training. We've established a police liaison. So we have a police liaison with Fitzroy Police. It's the Senior Sergeant from Fitzroy Police. That role is not determined on who is in that role, but sits within position of the Senior Sergeant at Fitzroy. So whoever sits in that role actually just takes on being the patient liaison for St Vincent's. It's a wonderful role. It helps our staff, particularly if they feel that they'd like to speak to the police after an assault or need some advice about how to go about charging. There is someone who can give us some expert advice about that. We have formal and informal meetings with our police liaison, and they work quite closely with mental health as well, looking at people who may have absconded or any patients that we've had some real difficulties with. We also have had some gun safes introduced into our facility over the years, and we've also, what we do with Fitzroy Police is their senior sergeants come to our site and meet some really key people, such as the NUM from mental health, the ED director and NUM, and some of the emergency coordinators. So they're very much part of our team, which I think has been really, really key in building some of those external networks. The other thing we've recently engaged with maybe about 18 months now, maybe 2 years, is the PACER program. So we have staff who go out with the local police normally in the afternoons into the evenings, which has assisted in dealing with patients with mental health issues. So that has certainly helped provide some really good common knowledge around what we do as a healthcare service, but also making sure we're really providing good clinical care out in the community. We also work closely with corrections because we have corrections facility in the hospital, but we also have staff who work down with youth detention and down at Port Phillip as well. So we make sure we have a really good working relationship with the staff. We have a dedicated corrections liaison officer who is a really good, again, person to contact to find out any information that we might need. And we also have developed over the years a specific code in dealing with prisoner issues, which is a code Ivory, which is fairly unique to St Vincent's, and that's around about how to deal with a prisoner who may be becoming agitated or aggressive, but also a prisoner who may be attempting an escape. So we need to make sure that our staff are fully aware of that code. So in regards to other things that we've done to collaborate, to really look at how we manage OB, is we have a number of committees. And some of those are the Emergency Codes Committee. We have an Aggression Prevention and Management Committee. We also have an Emergency Services Liaison Committee, which is attended to again by Corrections, Police, Ambulance Victoria, Community Mental Health, ED, a representative from the General Ward, myself, and an After Hours Coordinator and an Emergency Coordinator. And our emergency coordinator, Barb, is part of the Central Hospital Emergency Management Committee, which was developed 5 years ago, and that was about connecting hospitals in the metropolitan area and sharing some really good information. The other thing that I've seen that has happened or has been a change over the last few years is that health services are much more willing to share what we do with one another, and I think that's been a really big change. I think before there was this idea, well, if I write a policy, it's mine, but I think we've gotten really better at deciding, you know, we're all in this together. This is not just one health services problem, and if we can share information. So being on the Aggression Forum, which has been going for about 2 or 3 years now, has something that's been really, really worthwhile, and I would really encourage those health services who don't have a representative to come and speak to myself or one of the people from that group to find out how to join. We meet 3 or 4 times a year at Thomas Embling normally, and it's been a really great development. So I think I'll leave it there. I'm getting the nudge that that's my time. So a lot of information in a very short space of time, but thank you.